Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second virtual meeting on this project. This is regarding the College Lake Dam removal and Blackwater Creek Stream and Wetland Restoration Project. My name is Kelly Stoll, and I'll be facilitating tonight's meeting. A couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. Everyone is muted, and we will be taking questions and answering those at the end of the presentation. There is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Please use that to enter your question, and we will get to as many as we can in the time allotted. I don't see any phone participants, but if someone does happen to come on using the phone, we will go ahead and identify those folks with the last 4 digits of their phone number and ask them to come off mute if they do have a question. And as I mentioned, we will answer as many questions as possible. And this meeting is being recorded. And again, we want to hear from you. This is an open and public process. There is a Q&A box, as I mentioned, during tonight's meeting. You can submit a comment using the email address shown. If you'd like to submit a written comment, the address is here, and we will show that again at the end of the meeting. And the QR code shown, if you'd like to take a shot of that, will take you to the project website where you can also leave a comment as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim Mitchell, and he's going to kick us off. Tim?
Thank you. Well, welcome everybody to this important project meeting. And again, as Kelly said, if you have any questions, you can follow the procedures she outlined in that process. First, I'd like to welcome or recognize the University of Lynchburg for their partnership in this project from the very beginning. And especially I'd like to recognize Dr. Laura Henry Stone. She has really been working on this project with their team from the very beginning. So really appreciate her efforts and the partnership and collaboration with the University of Lynchburg. And what I thought I'd do is just give everybody a little bit of background of how we got to where we are today and why we're doing this project. And I'll do this very briefly, but just from a background standpoint, the dam was originally built in 1934 by the Virginia Department of Highways. It was in a collaborative effort with the Lynchburg College, and there was a partnership with the college to donate part of the land to the Highway Department to build what is now Lakeside Drive and the dam. And the dam was built back at a time when there really were not any standards for constructing dams. There were no real safety standards. And so as an earthen embankment is about 35 feet tall. And at the time, it created about a 44.5 acre lake. The lake over the years was used for recreation, and is a very scenic and important lake in Lynchburg and for the university. But over time, sediment from development and runoff have filled in the lake. And right now the lake is only about 19 acres. So now it's a struggling urban lake. And it's probably one of the most studied lakes in Virginia. The first study that I saw on the lake and the spillway was back in the early 1980s by the Army Corps of Engineers. And at that time, they identified the spillway as being very significantly undersized. Again, there were really no dam safety standards that we had to comply with. As the dam safety standards were being developed at that time, a lot of dams and lakes were grandfathered, so they didn't have to come up to the current standards. But that changed in 2008 when the standards were revised again. And in 2008, the grandfathering provision was eliminated from the regulations. So all dams throughout Virginia had to meet the new dam safety regulations. And College Lake is considered a high hazard dam. So that means that If it fails, there's a significant threat to life and property and critical infrastructure downstream. So, and we saw that nearly occur about 4 years ago on August 2nd, 2018, when the dam overtopped. And being an earthen embankment, whenever an earthen embankment overtops, it can really fail at any moment. So during that process, the city and various partners did an evacuation of a significant number of residents to get them to safety in case it did fail. But it really became apparent at that point that we needed to do something with the dam. And then in collaboration with the university, we mutually agreed to remove the dam and build a bridge over Lakeside Drive, or over Blackwater Creek for Lakeside Drive. So, and going back to the regulations, the current standard for a spillway to pass a storm event is about almost the equivalent of the probable maximum flood event. And to put that into a term of numbers, a storm in a number of years, it's about a 1 in 10,000 year storm. Right now, the spillway can only pass about a 1 in 25 year storm. So as you can see, that's very significantly undersized. And it poses a continued risk to the health and safety of the people that live downstream and the infrastructure downstream as well. So what we're going to do tonight, our team is going to give you an update of where we are and where we're going with the project. And before we get into the updates, we're going to hear a message from the University of Lynchburg president, Dr. Allison Morrison Shetler. And with that, I'll turn it back to Kelly to play the message.
Hello, my name is Allison Morrison Shetler, and I'm the president of the University of Lynchburg. I'm sorry I can't join you in person today. It has been a busy year for us in a good way, and we just wrapped up our annual Give Day. You may have heard about the many community partnerships we are building. This project is one of them. Every day I'm excited to see the tremendous progress on Lakeside Drive. The traffic circle and new bridge are taking shape, and soon an entire intersection will be completely changed, improving access to our campus, but more than that, easing the daily commute for thousands of Lynchburg residents. Next, we will transform College Lake into a thriving wetlands ecosystem with research opportunities for our students and recreational opportunities for everyone. So how cool is that? It's an exciting time and an exciting project, and we are happy to partner with the City of Lynchburg. Thank you.
Hi, and good evening. My name is Erin Hawkins. I'm the project manager for the College Lake Dam Removal Project. So thank you for joining us this evening, and we look forward to answering some of the questions that you might have as we go through this evening. So really what I'd like to briefly start off with, as Tim talked about, is really looking at the purpose of this project is, to remove the dam from a dam safety perspective, and being able to address the dam safety requirements that we have, and then being able to address the significant sediment load behind it. So when we're looking through, Kelly, can you please proceed the slides? Thank you. One more, please. Got a little ahead of myself there. My apologies. So again, just to reiterate, some of the goals that we had mutually with the university is removing the dam on Blackwater Creek, managing that historical amount of sediment that is behind the lake, and then also using the remaining funding that we have to restore Blackwater Creek, that what's used to be a creek through this corridor, and trying to also then create a wetland opportunity on either side of what this floodplain is going to be. Wetlands are very critical to stream ecosystems to be able to help provide habitat, provide ecodiversity, and also being able to help with some of those overbank floods that we'll have through this area, since this is an area within the floodplain. Next slide, please. So the agenda for this evening, just to highlight a couple of things very quickly, we're going to go over some of the work that's been completed to date, and then we're going to move into talking a few about the existing conditions and some of the challenges that they have posed in developing the concepts that we'll share with, or the design that we'll share with you tonight. And then we'll get into a little bit more on the permitting and the schedule and what to expect as this project moves forward. Slide, please. Thank you. So going over some of the work that's been completed so far, there really has been a considerable amount of work completed to date. This has included really a historic evaluation of all the documentation that we've had on this project. As Tim mentioned before, this has been a highly studied lake and will continue to hopefully be an area of interest and study for years to come as this changed from a lake system back to a riverine area. We have done a detailed topographic survey of the project area, including detailed wetland delineations. So these are those areas along our creeks that have those wet characteristics along the whole project area. We also have done a significant amount of geotechnical and seismic refraction work to understand really the inner workings of the dam itself, understanding some of the bedrock conditions and being able to lay the foundation for this project to come to life. The Bathymetric Survey that was performed looks to study the depth of the lake, so the depth of water, but at that same time, we're also studying the depth of the sediment behind it. There are varying depths of sediment throughout the lake. So we had to have a better understanding and an updated report on about how much sediment is in the lake that we needed to be able to account for in this project. There's also been a significant amount of coordination and work done with both the hydrologic and hydraulic modeling. Essentially what that is looking at is the flow of water, the amount of water that comes through this system, and being able to coordinate that not only for the stream design, but what we found out early in this process is that FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is in the process of updating the city's floodplain mapping. And so originally the floodplain mapping was adopted in 1978. There has really been minimal updates to that. There was a small update and maps adopted in 2008, but really holistically, the city and the region as a whole had not been updated. So this is a significant effort that FEMA has underway. And so we've coordinated with them from the very beginning of this project so that we can align the post-construction conditions with that FEMA modeling so that the post-construction no dam scenario can be published along with their future maps. So that's a really exciting process that will come after all of the construction is complete and the dams removed to have these updated flood maps. So we've been working very carefully with them to make sure that our information will dovetail very nicely into their modeling and their efforts as well. We also have done a lot of geomorphic stream survey, looking out through not just the project area, but up and downstream throughout all of this. All of this is encompassed in a preliminary engineering report. It took a good amount of time to be able to pull all this together. So this has really been the work that we've been doing this past year has really been focused on the engineering. And this is really the summary of the year before that, some of the work that we've done. And we've also been really lucky to work with some Lynchburg College, University of Lynchburg students. One has been Heskett, who is shown here in the picture. He implemented a groundwater monitoring wells throughout two of the areas of the project. And what this helped us is measure the rise and the fall of the water within the soil area on either side of the stream so that we can have a better understanding of how this ecosystem responds to a storm event, how that groundwater rises and how it falls. And that has been able to be added into and aided the design of some of the proposed wetlands in the area. Slide, please. One of the things that we really wanted to take advantage of is looking at what the future could hold for this. Once construction is complete, once you've had some time for this area to stabilize and reestablish itself as a riverine system, there's a tremendous opportunity that could be at hand to be able to have recreational and educational opportunities. We've worked very closely with our partner departments, community development, parks and recreation. We've also worked very closely with the University of Lynchburg, along with Lynchburg City Schools, particularly the science administrators, and understanding what needs there could be for local school children to maybe one day come out to this as a filter opportunity right here in their own backyard. So looking at future trails, trail extensions, being able to look at educational signage and opportunities was really important for us, and really at this point in the game, and so that we can work through our permitting process and we can take into account some of these future amenities through our permitting process, so that they're not going to be a roadblock later on down the road when we want to go in and do some improvements, trail improvements to this restored area. So really and truly, this master plan will be able to be used as funding is identified later in the future for implementation. And that could be a very exciting opportunity that comes out of this process. Next slide, please. So I want to go over quickly a few of the existing conditions before we dive into the real heart of what we're here to talk about tonight, because this lake and this watershed posed a certain set of challenges for us to be able to get to this point of the design. So College Lake watershed, it has a fairly significant, what you would call a contributing drainage area. It's about 22 square miles, over 14,000 acres that drain down to College Lake. What you see on your screen is the outline of that watershed that reaches all the way down to almost and just about, including a portion of the airport, which is down on this southern end of the city, down on 29. It extends all the way over towards Tomahawk Creek, towards Enterprise Drive, and then along the 460 corridor as well, over near Liberty University. So there's a fairly significant area that drains down to this lake. And what you'll see here on the screen is the lake area, what's shown as the previous extent of the lake. And as we get ready to look at, we can see the changes that this lake has gone through over time. Next slide, please. So this is an aerial imagery that we have available to us, and looking at the historic extent of the lake. As Tim mentioned before, when the lake was initially built, it covered approximately 44 acres of surface area. And this picture was taken in the early 1940s, not even a decade into after the construction of the lake itself. Next slide, please. This is an aerial image from 2019 imagery that the city has. And what we have outlined in red is some of that historic extent that you can see. And what you've seen is that from that 1941 image to the 2019 image, and even the more recent ones, you can see that intrusion of sediment into the area, and you can see how that lake area has really been reclaimed by a forested area. And within that, it poses a certain amount of challenges, and we'll go through those here really quickly. Next slide, please. So College Lake Dam, this is what impounds College Lake. It is an earthen dam, as Tim mentioned. The spillway Lakeside Drive Bridge, as it is today, if you can imagine what it would be built today, it would be essentially the spillway would be at least the full length of the dam, just to be able to pass that probable maximum flood, or that 10,000-year storm event that was mentioned before. So really looking at that structure, looking where it was situated, looking at the bedrock situation was very critical in determining a stream alignment through this area. Next slide, please. What we also see is instability of our stream banks. This is an area in the upper portion. This is a former extent of the lake area. And what you see on the top left-hand side of the screen, you can see a tree that's standing right there at the stream bank. Even during our study of this, we could see that stream loss, that erosion occurring in some of these upper sections. So when we're seeing that instability, it's very concerning for us to be able to look at the system as a whole. What we also see, unfortunately, this is reality, not just in Blackwater Creek, but we see this in our tributaries throughout the city, is the amount of trash and woody debris that can accumulate. It can create obstructions. It can create a significant amount of erosion in our stream systems. The trash is not only unsightly, but as it accumulates in with these log jams, it can be pretty impactful to our stream ecosystems. We also see a lot of sediment deposits throughout the project area, and this is also true throughout the city, up and downstream of the College Lake itself, and where the sediment deposition actually disassociates the stream from the floodplain. It creates further, the creek has to rise higher before it can reach those floodplain areas. So having the sediment deposition in areas can pose a challenge as well. So again, it's a very, it's a delicate balance between being able to have a stable stream system that can not only withstand the flows of water that will come through this area, but also being able to manage some of this flow through here. And so also important to this project are some of the tributaries that drain into, probably the best known as Fox Creek. This is the creek and drainage area that comes underneath Thomas Road and formed the kind of that southwest corner of College Lake. And then one of a smaller tributary that comes off towards the end of Faculty Drive on the northern end of the project study area. And just wanted to be able to show you and reference where those tributaries are in relation to the project area. Next slide, please. These are two other smaller tributaries that mostly drain the university itself within the project area. So just being able to address and account for that drainage into the project area will be important as we move forward. Next slide, please. So now I'll turn it over to Troy Naparella with AECOM to go through the proposed conditions and construction considerations.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. So my name is Troy Naparella. I'm a senior technical advisor with the project, and I've been involved on a fair number of these types of projects across the country. So I'm really happy to be here today to talk to you about this project. So what we're looking about here on the proposed conditions is really a rendering of what Blackwater Creek will look like in the future. So you can see the main picture there shows a meandering channel through the former impoundment area. And the current design has about just over 5,000 linear feet of channel and just over 5 acres of wetland that will be restored within that area. A couple of key features I want to touch on are on the pictures on the left. So at the site of the existing dam, there'll be a rock armored cascade that will connect the channel that's at the grade in the former impoundment down to the existing grade of the Blackwater Creek. That will be built out of rock, and it's really put there to dissipate the energy as we change the grade from the channel in the impoundment down below, and to protect that channel so it doesn't erode as the stream moves through there. And then the lower photo shows an example of what the channel might look like through the former impoundment with wood and vegetation protecting those banks. And really that wood toe and rock toe that you'll see throughout the channel is there to protect it as storm flows come through to hold those banks in place, really until that native vegetation is able to establish itself. And then that'll roughen up the floodplain and help keep the soil in place. So next slide, please. This next slide just talks a little bit about some of the features of the proposed conditions. So, throughout the impoundment, we'll add meanders. So that adds length to the stream channel, which lowers the overall slope, which allows that velocity to be slowed down in the channel and connect it to the floodplain. So that's a kind of a benefit of the meandering stream through there. And then talk briefly about some of the grade control features we'll have throughout the setup. So the lower figure there on the left shows a log cross vein grade control. We'll use these types of grade control structures in the tributaries that feed into Blackwater Creek. Specifically, we'll use reclaimed wood from the site. That's a real benefit. So it reduces what material needs to be disposed of off site. We'll focus with the wood on the tributaries because there'll be less force, smaller flow, so that wood will hold up quite nicely. And then that's really contrasted to when we get to the next slide, we show some of the features that we'll use in the main channel. So similar, I guess, geometry to those structures. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see some boulder cross vein grade controls. So we'll use larger rocks on the main channel. That'll stabilize the channel in place. And then the larger rocks are less apt to move during large storm events. And then along the banks, we'll use wood, rock, vegetated control on the banks. Again, that's both a short-term and a long-term solution to bank erosion. So the wood and the rock hold it in place immediately after construction. And then as we, that natural vegetation grows, it holds that material in place, as well as roughening up the floodplain to slow those flows down. So as you get larger flows and it exceeds the bank and goes into the newly created floodplain, that slows that water down to reduce the erosive forces. So, yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the construction phase as well. So on this slide, we show the 3 areas highlighted in yellow are our sediment disposal areas. So as you know, when we restore this river and remove the dam, there's going to be a lot of sediment that needs to be managed. So to reduce costs and to get that out of the stream so it doesn't flow down as we remove the dam, we've identified 3 storage areas that will be permanent locations where this material will be removed. So these 3 locations have sufficient capacity to hold all of the sediment that we're going to have to manage as part of this process. It's outside of the floodplain. It'll be used, contoured into the natural topography of the area, and then planted with natural vegetation. Go on to the next slide. And then also another thing, when you get to construction, it's a big site. There's a lot of activity going on. So there will be a fair amount of signage. This is really to protect the public and also keep them out of the way of the construction crew. So during construction, the Creekside Trail will be closed from Lakeside Drive to Shirley Road. This signage will be up for the duration of the project. And we'll do this in close coordination with Parks and Recreation and the University of Lynchburg. So, a question out, we have to manage the water, this care of water, dewatering process as we lower the dam. So for this particular project, we've selected to use siphons to aid in the management of that water. We've used siphons on a number of projects. They're really a very useful tool that's available to us in these types of projects for a couple of reasons. One, it gives the contractor really a lot of control over how much water we're moving from the impoundment downstream. That is helpful for them from a construction standpoint as they move equipment around and remove sediment and dispose it on site. It's also helpful from an environmental perspective to control the sediment and turbidity that's going downstream, particularly compared to some other methods. So we'll use that to manage the flow and by default sort of the turbidity. And it'll give us the opportunity to really control dewatering at a slow rate to keep everybody safe and to manage the water on site. Next slide. So more about sediment management. So we'll use a number of methods to manage sediment on site. There'll be active management as the water level goes down. The contractor will go in with excavators and move that material out of the floodplain and move it to those permanent sediment disposal locations. We'll also employ some other options as well. So on the left, we're showing sediment traps. We'll construct these throughout the project in various locations. This is an example of a pretty simple but effective approach where you put in a series of bulk bags. It's a very small dam that backs up water, slows the velocity, and allows particles to settle out. And then it can be excavated from that area. Sort of in the same photo, you can see an arm there of an aquatic sort of pontoon-based excavator. We've seen these on sites as well. They can be used to get out on some pretty soft ground, excavate that material, and again, move it to more stable ground to get it to the final disposal sites. And going back to this, so the right-hand photo just shows that the excavator in more detail. It can get out and move material. I'm going to the next slide now. So this slide really talks about those sediment stockpiles. As I mentioned, there's 3 of them. They're on site. We'll put them there, but we don't leave them unprotected. So those sites, as mentioned, will be contoured to blend in with the surrounding topography to protect against near-term erosion. They'll have a series of core logs placed to help with rill erosion and gully erosion. They'll have fabric placed over, and some quick-growing crops will be placed on it to sort of stabilize it for the immediate period right after construction. And then it'll be planted with natural vegetation that will take root over a longer time frame and hold that material in place. And the three stockpiles will handle approximately 150,000 cubic yards, which is everything we need to store on site. So it's always important to kind of manage expectations during these projects. And it's important to know that it is a large construction project, just like a highway or a home development. There's a period where we have exposed soil, water can get turbid. And so we like to talk about, what to expect and how we manage the site. So the first thing is, I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. We're working in the river. There are periods where we're digging and flowing water that can create turbidity. We really do everything we can in our plans and specs to limit the amount of turbidity that we see in the stream. It's generally part of the permitting. It's in our specs, so we work closely with the contractor to limit that. But it does happen occasionally. The second bullet, working my way up, is an unattractive view. Initially, as we draw the pond down and expose some of the area, there'll be a lot of area that's not vegetated. We try to minimize that, but eventually we'll get the site relieved of water, and we'll be doing work, and it'll be a fairly large construction site. Construction noise, that will occur. There will be equipment on site. It's loud. This will be limited, obviously, to the requirements of the city for that construction period. And then the last one that's at the top there is unpleasant odor. Under some circumstances, depending on the type of material that's dewatered, you can get some unpleasant odors that can range from a earthy, musty smell to that sulfur odor that you might get, like rotten eggs. I'll be honest, I always mention that one because it's probably, of all of these, the thing that would bother people the most. I've actually never experienced a really bad odor on any of the projects. But with that said, it is possible that it could occur. And so we want people to be aware. I will note that all of these are short-term impacts. Like, none of these will be there permanently. These are short-term, measured in weeks and days, not really anything longer than that. Next slide, please. And then I think when we talk about the construction phase, another tool that we have in our toolbox as the engineers is monitoring and construction oversight. So I think right now we've put in some turbidity and dissolved oxygen monitors so we can look and see some pre-construction data and see what the river looks like. And that will stay in place during the course of construction, and we'll monitor that. So if those turbidity or dissolved oxygen levels get outside of a normal range, we can call a timeout, take a pause, talk to the contractor, and try to understand if there's something that's being done on site that's contributing to those numbers, and then take corrective action. So that's a tool we have at our disposal. We'll also have engineers that specialize in this type of work on site during construction to monitor the activities, to work with the contractor, help them implement the designs as we vision them. And that concludes my piece of the presentation. I'm turning it back over to Aaron now. So thank you, everybody.
So I really appreciate that overview. Next, we're going to talk about move into the long-term management, and we'll kind of then getting into some of the permitting and scheduling pieces of this. So once all of this work is said and done, what the city will be moving forward with is what is the post-construction management or the compliance monitoring period. This is a requirement of our permits that we have through the Army, that we will have through the Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of Environmental Quality. All this is done through the VMRC, the Virginia Marine Resources Commission as well. So multiple agencies will be working with them to secure the permitting for this project. And so post-construction, once all the equipment is gone, along with AECOM, we'll be keeping a very close eye on this project site and making sure that the site is stabilizing, the vegetation is coming in, and the project remains successful. And really and truly, that is our only long-term goal, is making sure not only that we get the dam gone, but that this is a successful project moving forward. Another aspect of this is the long-term management. As a primary and major landholder of this project, we'll be working with the University of Lynchburg in setting up what that long-term management strategies can be. And this is really will be for the long-term post-construction. This can be from everything from annual inspections, just kind of walking through the site, seeing how the site is coming along. Also includes looking at invasive species. There's no surprise that native species are the preferred choice of plant in any of our project areas, and when we're going in and trying to implement stabilization practices. But those invasive species there are well abundant in this project area. So it is not the expectation that invasive species are completely eradicated from the project, but at least in the sense that we're able to manage the invasive species to be able to allow some of that native planting to come through and thrive within the project area. Long-term care, as it would be with any other property owner, if you could go back, please, Kelly. If long-term management of this site will also include looking through for potential trash pickup. One thing that we talked about before is that there is within our stream corridors in any watershed in the city, a lot of trash that does come through. So there are plenty of opportunities that can come up for community engagement, participation, and trying to help this keep this area and project area clean as it moves forward and really begins to establish itself. Next slide, please. And what we hope the most for the university is, and for others as well, that that there could be research opportunities, whether it is university-led or grant-funded opportunities, to be able to have that research in their backyard, being able to participate and partner with the Lynchburg City School System, as we had indicated earlier through our recreation and educational opportunities that we had identified, is that this could be a really great outdoor classroom. As those opportunities come to light, and again, other community engagement pieces could be that volunteer trash cleanup events that go on. And this what happens in the picture that you'll see is actually some of Dr. Laura Henry Stone's students that came out and actually helped us participate in evaluating one of the tributaries in the area. This is over off the end of Faculty Drive, working with our technical lead, Brandon Alderman. He unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight, but he has been a driving force behind this project, getting it to the stage that we're in today. So I want to give him acknowledgement on that for this meeting tonight. But there's a lot of opportunities. The city remains committed to be engaged for whatever the future may hold, whether it is with the university students, Lynchburg City Schools, or other opportunities as they may arise. So we're really excited about what could be. Next slide, please. So next, permitting and schedule. And this is where we are getting very close to being at the starting point of construction. As a start, we have gotten all of our preliminary engineering work done. We have come a long way in the design phase. The last part of this is permitting. We have submitted all of our necessary permits to the appropriate agencies, and they are in the review process as we speak. Some of that is with the Army Corps of Engineers, who we have been talking to since really and truly since August 2nd, 2018, when we had the unfortunate event that caused its overtopping to begin with. So this is something that is no surprise to them. They have known that this project is coming, and we have been working closely with them to make sure that they are apprised of every step along the way. And all of this, again, through the permitting, we'll be working very closely with, and I should say also with the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality as well. Then with the Virginia Marine Resource Commission, all of that will wrap up our environmental permitting from the state and federal agencies that we'll need. We are currently going through and have been going through the review process locally for our land disturbance permits and getting everything ready to be able to be issued by the time we're ready for construction. I mentioned earlier the coordination that we've had with FEMA. So this is something that has been not necessarily part of permitting, but it is a requirement for us to be able to document the changes in the floodplain that this project presents with the dam removal itself. You will wind up seeing some water surface lowering on the upstream side of the dam, and then being able to take the dam out. It's going to change our floodplain maps within the project area. But again, FEMA is working across the entire city to update our maps. So it's important that we have coordinated with them to make sure that this post-construction condition can be included in that effort. It's really important to have these updated maps as we move into the future. And then we'll be working, continue to be working with the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, or DCR. We've submitted our dam alteration permit, and we'll be going through the process to keep them apprised and getting the approvals needed to get the project started. So with that, we'll go into what our schedule is. As I mentioned, we've been working through and completing the design process. We're in the permitting process right now. We'll touch on this again in a minute, be moving forward with securing easements, both with the university and other surrounding property owners, before we go to bid later this year. Hopefully by towards the summertime, end of summer, we'll be out to bid, getting this project ready. It is our hope to have construction beginning in winter of 2023. So by January 2023 is our target to have construction started. This is really important because December to May time period, or December to March, is an ideal time to be able to remove the dam. We're not seeing the large storm events that we would normally have. It's not out of the realm of possibilities, but the likelihood of those are really very low. It's just really an ideal window of being able to get in, and that dam removal will happen very early in this process. So by spring of 2023, the dam will be gone, and then the focus will be really getting the restoration efforts completed. Construction as in a whole will be approximately 2 years. So calendar year 2023 into 2024, this project will be will wrap up in the winter of 2024. And that is as long as Mother Nature cooperates with us as we move forward. So this is, again, just an overview of our project schedule, getting ready to move into the closing piece of design and getting everything ready for construction is what the project team is focused on right now. Next slide, please. So easements are really going to be important, as they are for any project, to be able to get in and get this project constructed. As I mentioned before, the University of Lynchburg is one of the primary landowners within this project area, and they have been a great partner in moving this project forward. We'll also be reaching out to the other affected landowners in the immediate area, mostly on the Stratford area, on the Perrymont neighborhood side of the project, and then Faculty Drive as well, and working through the easement process as we move forward. And so I believe that really wraps up our presentation tonight. We are really glad that you've been able to join us, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have in our time remaining. So thank you all very much.
Yeah, this is Kelly again. Thanks everyone for joining us. We do have folks on the line ready to answer any questions you may have. We ask that you use the Q&A box to ask any questions. We'll relay those to our panel. If there's anything else, I don't see anyone on the phone, so we will forego that part of the comment process. But I will put up the, here we go, the ways to comment following this meeting. We do have a question regarding the road closures at the university campus. Erin, is that something you can take? Or?
It would help if I would be off of mute. So road closures on the university campus, it is not planned at this time to have road closures. There will be some construction traffic around campus, but it is not the intention to have road closures on campus. But the site will be, there will be signage around the site, and access to the project area will be limited throughout construction.
All right, we have another question regarding the wetlands and the sediment sites. In some of the early slides, it mentioned remaining funds and how the wetlands would be managed. Is it possible funding funds run out, will sediment disposal sites, how will they be managed? And is it possible that wetlands could not be developed?
Right. So remaining funds, I think that was just a kind of a step in the process of kind of the primary focus is the dam removal. And then when we say remaining funds, it's that the remaining funding that we have for this project is meant to cover the construction of both the restoration effort and the wetlands within our base project area. And so when we're looking at that, we're not anticipating, we don't want to run out of funding. We do have, we have built in contingency funding within our construction estimates to be able to account for any contingencies that may be needed. It's not, no, but we do not anticipate funding being challenged at this point. And then we anticipated being able to meet our project goals with the funding that we have available to us.
I would just also add that, we're not going to leave any sediment disposal sites unmanaged. They will all be stabilized and managed. Regardless of the funding, we'll figure out a way to get that done. And if we have to allocate more funding, then or figure out a way to find more funding to make sure that that's done, then that'll have to be done. I mean, that'll be part of the condition of our permits, I'm sure, is to make sure that those areas are stabilized and managed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tim.
We have a question from Todd Olson. He lives on Faculty Drive. That equipment will be stored adjacent to his property. The question is, what will be done to manage equipment, and as well as, is there a particular reason why that location was chosen? And then a follow-up would be, what will be done to minimize sediment into his yard?
Well, I'll take an initial stab at this, and then I'll defer to Troy and others on the construction aspect of it. One of the things that will be a part of this project as a whole is erosion and sediment control. So in any areas, we'll have, silt fence or sediment control measures that will minimize that kind of movement of sediment outside of the lake area. So that if we do have within that project laydown area, we have those areas protected so they're not having that sediment runoff from those areas. Noise from equipment during construction, I won't lie, it is going to be noisy. It is our intention to have normal operating hours for the majority of the project. There will be very few times where there may be a 24/7 operation, and those are going to be limited to really within the footprint of the dam area itself. Once we start breaching the dam, and there'll be two time periods where there may be 24/7 operation. One is for the installation of the siphon system itself. Just because once we need to get those siphons in, we need to not have any break or pause in between that work. So that will be one time period until we get those siphons in place that we will, and it's only anticipated no more than a week, hopefully just a matter of a few days to get those in place. Second will be when we actually start the breaching of the dam itself. That will be a 24/7 operation until we're able to complete that breach. What we don't want to have is a lull in between that where we would have sensitive areas open are looking at weather events as well. We will have to time that very carefully with what the weather forecast is and have that optimal window of time. So noise from equipment will normally be during business hours, but then there will be some limited time periods, which are at the opposite end of the project area from Faculty Drive, at least on the very end of Faculty Drive. So hopefully there'll be a little bit of buffer there in between. Now, the equipment staging areas, there's going to have to be multiple points of entry into this project. Some being from Lakeside Drive itself, coming down to the dam area as a primary area that we'll be working in, and then coming on the upstream side of the project, both from the Faculty Drive side and from the Fox Creek side or the university side, being able to have access to both sides of the lake there so that we can get in and install measures. So while there will be some construction staging areas, we'll have to work and be able to maybe address some of the more specific questions that you have on that. And we'll be happy to talk with you about that after the meeting if you would like. I'd be happy to talk with you one-on-one or visit your property itself.
Erin, you mentioned
answer your question.
Yeah, and we have some follow-up questions as well. You mentioned during business hours as normal operating hours.
Those are normally 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Would be that normal operating hours, sun up, sun down. It wouldn't, and again, I've mentioned there's only limited times that there would be a 24/7 operation, but that is not anticipated for any significant length of time through the project.
We can discuss specific properties as far as tree removal easements with individual homeowners.
Yes, I can be happy to do that. But to answer the question that I see on the screen here, yes, there will be some tree removal to the extent possible. I'll have to speak with the property owner on a case-by-case basis, and I'll be happy to do that and answer their questions.
Can you address the impact of wildlife in the area?
Yeah, so as this system changes from a lake system back to a riverine system, and we saw this in the time period where the lake was drained before. What we want to do, and by controlling the draining of the lake with the siphon system, is to be able to allow for some of that fish passage. Sorry, I knew I was going to tongue tie that one. Downstream, and some of and to be able to migrate some of the aquatic life downstream just through the flow. And then what we will see is that any of the snapping turtles or anything else that lives in that immediate area they will adjust themselves. They will find that their habitat and they will seek that out. So that's one of the things that we saw during the drawdown time period before, is being able to see that system adjusting itself. And as that system does adjust with the slower drawdown, the wildlife will have more opportunity to adapt. And what we'll begin to see is that we'll see that see other critters coming in there, land-based animals, as they are, as the stream bank area on either side of the stream channel becomes open, it will invite other wildlife into the area. So hopefully it will develop into a very biodiverse habitat.
I'm going to go back to our schedule slide. We have a question about the time frame for. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not going to go back to the timeline slide. They're asking about the bridge project. Can you give an update on completion for that?
Yeah, substantial completion, and by that I mean getting traffic moved over to the new Lakeside Bridge is anticipated by the end of the calendar year. The bridge does have its own project site that I would direct anybody to get more information. But from our coordination with the bridge project team, that they're anticipating substantial completion by the end of the calendar year of 2022, and then completion by June of 2023. So what that does, it gives the traffic time to be able to get off and onto the new bridge, and there will be other ancillary work that the contractor may need to wrap up in that remaining time that they had.
One clarifying question regarding the work hours, and I know you mentioned that some parts of the project will be a 24-hour operation, but folks are wondering about weekends.
It's my understanding that it's not necessarily anticipated to be on the weekend unless it is one of those 24/7 operations. And Troy, Ron, I will defer to y'all as well to correct me, but that's
Aaron, I can hop in. I mean, these projects generally are not working 7 days a week. Like everybody else, the folks working on the construction crew value their weekends. Like you did mention, that there are a couple sort of time critical activities that need to go on continuously. So yeah, I think other than that, I think you answered it quite thoroughly.
Very good. And Troy, would you mind, there's another question about the time frame of the project, 2 years of any of the, what we had discussed earlier, some of the short term, the noise, smell, and disruption. Maybe talk a little bit more towards that for our audience member.
Yeah, sure. So, as far as the construction that goes on, the whole project may take 2 years. But it is really done in discrete chunks. So, there'll generally be activity going on at the dam site related to the siphons or lowering the dam physically. But the stream restoration component generally starts at the upstream end and then moves towards the dam, sort of in coordination with the water lowering. So, it's not like there's going to be equipment over the entire site, sort of evenly distributed over the entire period. It will really move around. So, depending on where you live near the pond, you may have, a few months or, maybe longer than that, where it's near your house, but then eventually it will move further away. And then I guess the question about, the odor and the visuals, I will say a similar response. The odors, if they occur, are generally related to the when the water is removed from the soil, various chemical processes that are going on that can create an odor. Again, that will occur for a short period once that section is dewatered, and then as it'll eventually go away, and as you move downstream, it may occur again, depending on the soil type. So again, that would be discrete, depending on sort of where you are around the former pond. And then same with the aesthetics, grasses, these areas tend to have a pretty fantastic native seed bank stored in the soils and the exposed sediment. So vegetation grows very quickly. And so these areas that are brown, once they're dewatered, tend to green up very quickly, both from the native seed bank as well as whatever the contractor puts down and we have in our plans and specs to cover that. So one thing we often do is have a cover crop that goes in, and we'll put that down to stabilize the soil and have some a fast growing crop comes up before the native vegetation does.
Do we have any other questions that we can answer for you? We are happy, again, Aaron mentioned getting with individual homeowners on a one-on-one basis. So if you would like that, to avail yourself of that opportunity, we have our email here on the screen or the website where you can submit a comment and let us know. And we will do our best to get back to you very soon. We will get back to you, I should say. That is the best way. Aaron, when might we start talking to individual homeowners that have concerns?
I'll be happy to speak with them at any time. Again, I can put here in my, see here, let me get to everyone here. In the chat, I am going to put my email address. Apparently I can't talk and type at the same time. Okay, so there's my email. It's in the chat. So that if somebody wants to reach out to me, I'll be happy to coordinate a time to either just have a phone conversation. I'll be happy to visit the house. I can go over plans with anyone that has questions. Anyone that lives, in the immediate area of the lake project itself, and feel they have any questions related to the construction, staging, what's going to be going on, and I'll be happy to do that. I don't have an exact time frame of that, but it will be starting soon as we're beginning our easement acquisition process now. So we'll be reaching out to them here, at least within the next few weeks to get the conversation started.
Is there anyone else who has a question that they'd like us to address during this forum? Please use the Q&A box. We'll be happy to respond. Will the slideshow be available online?
Yes, we've recorded this evening's meeting, and it will be available on the College Lake Dam removal.org webpage, and we can follow up with some information on that on our social media and have links to that sent out after everything is ready to be posted. But yes, it will be available online.
Yeah, and that QR code that's on your screen takes you to the website that Aaron's referring to. Okay. I don't see any other questions at this point. Again, let me see. Oh, one more. When will the next project update be? And you can, okay. Erin, would you want to let us know when the next project update might be?
Sure. Well, who you can contact is myself. You can contact our department. You can contact me directly. Like I said, my email is in the chat box. And then also, I would encourage anyone to visit the College Lake Dam Removal webpage that we have. Again, that QR code will take you directly to it. It will be in the presentation deck once it's published to the webpage, and we can include that when we send out information after the meeting. The next project update will probably be closer to construction. As I mentioned before, we are getting everything finalized with the design now, moving into that permitting phase. So our next project update will probably be closer to the fall, once we have gotten a contractor on board and having another public meeting to discuss some of the more specifics about construction dates and meeting the contractor as well. So there'll be more coming in the fall. But in the meantime, if anybody has any questions, I would encourage anyone not to hesitate to reach out to me.
The other thing you mentioned it, Erin, are the social media accounts for the water resources. And you guys update that with new information as well and pointing people to the website for more in-depth information.
Absolutely.
Remind folks of that as well. Okay. Without any more questions, Erin, do we want to wrap up for this evening?
Absolutely. I appreciate everyone's time this evening. I know we all are busy with a million and one other things, but we were excited to have this update meeting. Glad we're having this opportunity to be able to answer some of the questions, knowing that there'll be many more to come as we move forward. We're excited about this project and getting it started. So it's been exciting to see the bridge come to life, and it'll be exciting to see this project come to life as well. So again, thank you everybody for attending tonight, to the AECOM team and city team that's online, to Dr. Henry Stone, who is also online with us this evening, and to everyone in the audience that has attended. We thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.